My skin is black.
What you looking
My
at?
skin is black.
I feel so good to be black right now.
All right, guys. Yes. So, like I said, send like your questions or anything you want to know about, but I'm going to jump right in. So, welcome to episode 31 of the BlackNFashion podcast. This is actually season 2. I definitely want to make sure that moving into season 2 that I'm keeping the podcast very, very educational, informative, inspiring, motivated, and that you guys are actually getting like a lot of knowledge from the podcast as well. And so just to introduce myself, I've realized today that there are so many people that follow the LC Apparel Consulting page in business, but didn't know that I actually had a podcast that kind of correlates with the LC Apparel Consulting brand. That is my consulting agency. And I basically try to keep things across the boards like pretty much together. And what I do is like I give away like gems and information like via the BlackNFashion podcast. And then I try to correlate that stuff like with the LC Consulting brand as well, because they are both two of my businesses under the same umbrella, and it's just about pushing like the black agenda like forward in the black fashion industry and design. So I kind of wanted to start today just by like talking about the core like of a fashion business. So if there are people out there that are looking to start like a fashion design business, or they are already in the design business, but maybe you guys are looking to transition to doing like more cut and sew, or you're a graphic and designer or creative director or visionary, and you've started your business by doing more of like urban kind of streetwear or like luxury streetwear, and you're looking to transition into doing like made pieces instead of purchasing things wholesale and printing or like embroidery on there. So the first step, hands down, to me is figuring out where you want to be placed in the market. So I put a post up on LC Apparel Consultant a couple weeks ago where I asked people where they lay in the market. So when I say where does your brand lay in the market, I mean, does it lay in the budget area? Does it lay in moderate? Does it lay in better? Does it lay in contemporary, bridge, designer, couture, or avant-garde? So all of these different categories actually have a price point attached to them. So the best way for me to give you an example of what I mean when I say these different markets, when I say budget means off price. So that is your Forever 21s, like your H&M, your Ross, your Burlington. That is budget level pricing. Those things that when you fall in that budget level price point is a lot of times things that are created and sourced overseas. Those things are not made within the USA because they wouldn't have that low budget price point if they were. So as a designer, if you wanted to compete with Forever 21, or if you want to compete with an H&M, it would be literally impossible for you to create a clothing line that was actually manufactured in the USA that could compete with a Forever 21 because they are a mass budget retailer. So as a designer, a budget level clothing line should never be your direct competitors or an area of design that you should be falling into. In all honesty, budget, they pull from ready to wear and avant-garde and couture and contemporary designers, and they make the clothes very cheap by I'm not gonna say they jack up the fit, but the fit is not a crucial importance to a budget level customer. The fabrication is not a true importance to a budget level customer. And also, if you're in that market and you're selling things for honestly $20, $30, which is where a lot of luxury brands come from. If you're selling things at $20 and $30, that is a budget level price point. And if you have been I guess, catering to a budget level clientele, when you start to go up and you decide to change your price point or change your level of business, you either can do two things as a designer or as a brand owner. You can either elevate with your customer and take your brand to the next level, so that means basically whoever your target market is, they're actually growing with you. So if your customer started off being like that college grad, but that college grad has now gotten a job, that college grad is now into a place where they're buying homes and they're in a different place in their life, then that means you are elevating with your customer. Another thing you can do is just create different diffusion brands. So have a budget level brand, have a contemporary brand, have a ready to wear brand. Like, you actually really do have to break them up. So after I say budget, I want to move into telling you guys about a moderate brand. So your moderate brand would be like a Zara or like an Express. Like, that's moderate. So it's just like a little bit past budget, but not like completely. And then like better would be like All Saints or like Urban Outfitters. Like, those are better. Because price point's a little bit higher, not as cheap as like your budget level or your moderate level brand, but still fabrics are up and down. Just kind of depends on exactly who it is, because I think that All Saints and Urban Outfitters kind of fall really neck and neck, not aesthetically wise, but price point wise. They're catering to two different type of customers. And then your next level up would be a contemporary brand. Now, your contemporary brand is like your Alice and Olivia, your Rag and Bone, your Seven Jeans, your Vince, your Theory, Mark by Marc Jacobs. Who else is in that category? Millie, like those type of brands. Those brands fall in your contemporary price point. And contemporary price point pretty much is like $250, $300 plus. And when I say $250, I'm being nice, saying like a t-shirt is $250, but most of their garments range from $250 and they go all the way up to $900, i.e. like a leather jacket or like leather pants. Of course, they would be on the higher spectrum of a contemporary brand. And then you go into ready to wear. Ready to wear, of course, designer is going to be your more expensive brand. Ready to wear and designer are like your Ralph Lauren's and like your DKNY. So DKNY is contemporary because it's cheaper, but Donna Karan is more of like ready to wear. So Donna Karan has a different aesthetic. Her fits and her colors and her fabrications are a lot different than her DKNY brand. And that's the same way with like Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren is ready to wear, but Ralph by Ralph Lauren is contemporary. Same way with Michael Kors. Michael Kors is designer, ready to wear, whereas Michael by Michael Kors is more of your contemporary brand. So within this market, you definitely have to be able to you have to do your research. You have to figure out who your direct competitors are in order to place your brand in whatever market you're trying to cater to. A lot of times, new designers, you should be looking for a niche market, like looking for areas or opportunities where you can cater to a certain type of person or what this person's lifestyle looks like. You are never, ever, ever going to be able to make something for everybody. It's not going to happen. It's just very rare. You can have multiple diffusion brands. That opportunities are endless of having multiple diffusion brands, but actually creating one for each different type of customer is what your focus should be. Now, in LC Apparel Consulting, which is my business, we deal a lot with a lot of emerging designers. And usually when people come and they have a consultation with me and they speak with me, they're looking to get their brand off the ground. And a lot of times they're very shocked at the price point. For the most part, my brand and my consulting agency deals with a lot of designers that are looking to do small batch manufacturing, or they have these ideas, or they're in the urban market and they're trying to transition out of the urban market. So every single designer that I work with produces in New York City, either New York City or LA. Now, New York City is not China. It's not Pakistan. It's not any of those countries. You're not going to be able to get cheap labor at all. It's not going to happen. These people need to make minimum wage and be able to support their families and make money just like everybody else. So when moving into like wanting to do, small production and produce things for people, you have to raise your price point. In all honesty, like hi everybody, you're never going to be able to produce a brand in New York City for cheap. And that's just to be honest, like it's never going to happen. Like you're going to need to place yourself in the contemporary market in order for it actually to be profitable to you. If you want to do like, let's just say, I don't want it to be too expensive. Like I want it to be luxury. You shouldn't be putting luxury and a $200 garment in the same sentence. It just does not make sense. It does not equate. It doesn't work out that way. I'm sorry. A $200 garment is not luxury. A $200 garment is moderate, better, or contemporary. It's not a ready-to-wear garment. A ready-to-wear garment starts at $600 to $700 plus. And I think that's the main thing that I can stress to anybody over and over and over again is to make sure you guys know the difference between these markets. And if you're looking to do small batch production, which most new designers are, know that your price point has to be at a certain level. It's up to you as a designer to know your target, know your marketing plan, and have a marketing plan for them. Absolutely, you guys. I'm not saying you can't. You can produce in China without doubt. You can produce in China. You can produce in Pakistan. There's so many other countries out there that you can produce in. I'm just saying that in the US of A, it's not going to happen. So with producing in these other countries, it's a little bit harder because you have to meet their order minimums. You have to meet their fabric and trim quality minimums. And now, since these motherfuckers in elected Trump, you had a 10% tariff off of anything that's coming in to the USA from China. So you're actually spending way more money bringing these goods in. And sometimes you guys go ahead and make all of these units when you don't even have the clientele or the customer behind it to actually sell it. So then you're sitting on a whole bunch of merchandise or sitting on merchandise that you cannot sell. And I think that that is one of the biggest mistakes as designers. Like, I wanted to get a cheap product, but I wanted to get it made quality, and I'm going to oversee it. I'm going to go do everything in another country, where you can do both. Don't get me wrong. That's another thing, and I'm going to make sure I hit on that. You can get your samples made here. You can get your patterns made here. You can get your patterns graded here. And then you can send them over China if you happen to find a vendor or a manufacturer that is willing to work with your order minimums. You can absolutely do that without question. However, there's always gonna be a catch-22. Even if you get a good manufacturer and you happen to send everything over there and things get done, you have to be responsible for doing that quality control for it coming over back into the USA. You need to check every single piece, and I cannot stress that enough. Before you send anything to any customer, you need to be doing quality control. If it gets made in China, USA, Pakistan, it does not matter. You need to do quality control on those garments, top to bottom. You can't pick one out the bunch and decide that, you're going to check this one. You have to check everything. Okay. So next topic I want to get into, I guess, is more so just like what you need to have prepared when you're starting out, or if let's say you want to work with my business and you want to work with LC Apparel Consulting, you do need to have a vision. And in all honesty, that's all you need. I can walk you through, and we can do like design development sessions. I can do fabric sourcing for you. We can do classes and all of that good stuff. However, you got to have the willpower in you to want to learn some of these things on your own. So I do teach. I do have my garment district tour, but I also try my best to consult you guys in the best way possible. But at the end of the day, I'm only one person. I only can do so much. And you have to be able to take ownership and be able to do some of these things and learn some of these things on your own. I have so many recommended readings, which I will share in the show notes, as well as throwing out there. Like, I love The Plan, the Product, the Process by Lisa Newell Hopkins. She actually was one of my professors in college. It was an amazing book that'll really give you the ins and outs of the fashion industry and what you need to know and what you need to learn. Now, one of the things that we should definitely talk about is the design, fit, sample making process. And I think that a lot of people get the samples and getting a sample made. I'm not going to say you guys get it confused, but there are multiple versions of a sample. So when you initially give a design to a pattern maker or a sample maker, the first thing that's going to come about is a fit sample. And that's literally it. It's just testing the fit. It's just testing the construction details of it and putting the silhouette together. So don't get a fit sample confused with, oh, I want to be able to show this to a person and be able to sell it, or I want to use it as a photo shoot sample or an ad sample. I want to use it for my marketing. That's not how it works. You will pay for 1 to 2 to 3 rounds of samples before you even get to a photo ad promo sample. You will need to do a fit sample first, and then what's a ballpark figure for a 3-piece leisure wear collection? Too broad. Way too broad. And that's enough. I'm going to touch that in 1 second. Okay. There is no ballpark figure. I don't know what the design is. I don't know what the fabrication is. I don't know how many units you are doing. I don't know anything. So when asking for pricing for someone like me or a pattern maker or something like that, you need to come through with a tech pack. You need to come through with pictures. You need to come through with, I want this fabrics, I want these units. And that, I'm not going to lie to you guys, is one of the most annoying things you can ever ask any consultant, any pattern maker, any manufacturer, because every single design is different. There's no way for me to tell you, oh, it's going to be this amount and that's a solid number. It does not work like that. In no means and in no way, shape, or form will you ever get an answer for anyone on a ballpark number for a 3-piece leisure collection. It could be a 2-piece, it could be a jumpsuit, it could be a skirt, it could have pockets, it could have drawstring, it could have elastic in it. Like, really, when you come and you want to know a number, have your shit together. And that's, I don't know if that's tough love. I don't know if that's too harsh. I'm just giving to you real. That's not enough. That doesn't mean shit to somebody like me. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, to be completely honest. Like, you got to be ready. And when you send stuff like that, it turns us like that person not ready. They didn't do the research. They didn't put down the groundwork for the foundation of their collection to even ask a question like that. And it does make you seem like an amateur and that you're not ready, and will refuse services with the quickness. Okay. So I'm sorry if that's too harsh, but I got to give you guys some tough love today and give you guys some honest shit on the way these things work in order for you to be successful in your brand. If you're not sure and you want to learn more, take a class, come on a tour, get a consultation, really put in the work and invest in yourself if you really want to know how to move throughout this industry. I've been working in this industry for a very long time. I work domestic, I work international, I worked for leisure brands, I worked for children's wear, I've worked in hosiery, socks, handbags, SLGs, outerwear, ready to wear. Like, you really got to verse yourself in order to really get something out of this. So try to not be vague, but to be as detailed as possible when it comes to reaching out to someone to help you. And I can't stress that enough. Like, I really cannot stress having all your I's dotted and your freaking T's crossed when it comes to stuff like that. Now, y'all made me forget my train of thought because I looked at that question. But anyway, so I actually have done everything already. I just want a better number, but I understand you're trying to make your money as well. It's not about us making our money, darling. You're not giving me any information, so it's no way for me to give you a ballpark number. Like, it's not about making money. We need to see the garment. And maybe you should send me an email or a text or something like that to show me the exact details in a flat form, and then I can really give you an answer of how much it would cost, but you still need to have everything that I just mentioned, which was units, fabric, silhouettes, details, all of that shebang before I can even give you like an answer, to be completely honest. Now, I do want you guys to send in questions, because I definitely want to be able to answer them as well as to my ability, as far as like, you know, getting like on the right track and stuff. But in all honesty, to me, it sounds like you need a consultation, or you need to send tech packs to like multiple manufacturers to figure out who has the best price for what you're trying to do. But those are other things you do. Her consultations are really great. You should book one. Oh, have you had one with me, Sunshine Alley? Maybe you have, and maybe I just don't recognize your Instagram. I don't know. I'm sorry if I don't recognize your Instagram. It's a lot of people that contact me, but I tell you, I give you all the information and the role that you need to be on if you would like a consultation. Damn, y'all made me forget my train of thought. I was like about to make a point about something else before I start answering these questions. I don't know. Damn it, what was I talking about? So I dropped my stuff to you today. Oh, okay. I know that is. Give me 1 second, because I know who that is. Don't tell me, because I know That's Shayna. Okay. Hey, Shayna. I'm like, I know who this is. All right. So moving on. Let's discuss product development. Okay. So like, I know what I was talking about. I was talking about the whole sample thing. Okay. So from fit sample, you get, once you approve the fit and approve colors and approve like quality, then we move on to a pre-production sample. And the pre-production sample happens way before anything else happens. So this is how the final garment is going to look based off of your fit comments, and also how the final fabric will look after it's, because some people get like dyed and match or like do lab dips or like all over prints and stuff like that. So the fabric has to be created. So after we do that, then we move into a pre-production sample. The pre-production sample at that point could still be off in some type of way. The fit could still be off and maybe need some more alterations, or like the color or the quality of the fabric. We don't love it in the pre-production stage, but that is the time where we can actually fix things as well before moving into like full-on production if we don't like the construction of it or anything like that. So as designers, when you guys are reaching out to pattern makers or someone to help, make sure you are asking for price. Like, okay, so I want a fit sample, I want a pre-production sample, I want a showroom sample, because they're different, and I just want to make sure you guys are getting what you need from that, because you can get a sample and it can be in a substitution fabric, and then you're like, okay, I can't do anything with this. I cannot promote this. I cannot sell this or anything. And it could be because you are not being specific about what you need. Just know that you're going to have to pay for each sample that you get. And normally someone would tell you what it is. Like in my business, I make sure I lay it out to the T. Do you want a fit sample and you want to move directly into production? Do you want a pre-production? Do you want to add sample? Like, what is your hope for using these samples? And the biggest piece of advice I can get is to go ahead and pay whatever samples you need to get. That fit sample is crucial. It's going to be what the garment is going to fit like, what the proportions are going to be like, what the construction is going to be like, and let's make any rendition or any alterations to that before we move into pre-production. That pre-production sample we can actually use to do ads and marketing and stuff like that. And that pre-production sample will have final fabric. It will have the right fit. And what we can do is we can use that sample to figure out how we want to do our sizing. So in all honesty, you shouldn't be making different sizing if you're not going to sell it. If you're a designer that really only sells small, medium, large, why are we making extra smalls? Why are we making extra large? Or if you're a designer that is numerical, you sell 4, 6, 8, 10s, why are we making zeros? Why are we making double zeros? There's really no point. So the whole point of that pre-production sample and getting that sample and final stage of fit and color and approval and proportion of construction is to use that sample to put it out there. Use that as your marketing tool to see what people are gravitating towards, whether you want to do a trunk show or a fashion preview or a pop-up, and it be available for pre-order. So that way you can get feedback, try it on multiple people, get their thoughts on like, I love this, but I could totally like this a lot more if it was this color, or if it was this length, or if it was a sleeve on it. And that can help you do like a line edit. So you like, people are gravitating towards this, but they gravitating towards it if it was this color, or if it was this, or if it was that. And it seemed like people that were on the medium side liked it a lot more. So when I decided to do my production plan, I'm going to make way more mediums than I'm going to make large or small, because that's the customer that is gravitating towards it. Hi, will you be saving this live? Yes, girl, I'll be saving it, and I'll post it on my page too. Sorry. Yeah, I will. I'll make sure I save it. I'll make sure I post it and like repost it a few times as well. So damn it, every time I ask a question I lose my train of thought. What was I saying? Yeah, okay. So we use these is somebody asking me? Okay, I'm so confused right now. Somebody might be asking me a question. I'll get to it in a second. We use these things to create our production plan. We use these things to figure out where we're going to be and what we need to actually make into production. If you make a sample of something and, sizing, thanks girl. If you make a sample of something and don't nobody like it, or you didn't get great feedback off of it, why put it into production? There's no point in making it. Maybe, they wasn't ready for it yet. Let's save that for next season. Or maybe it's something I can rework the design, rework the fabrication that I want to use. I could put it out in a different season, but don't move forward with actually creating these collection pieces or whatever just because you made a sample of it. Just because you made a sample of it doesn't mean that you actually have to use it for that season. Maybe it does need to be reworked. Maybe it does need like some edits and stuff like that based off of like what you got from from the people that you are surveying and trying it on and stuff like that. Now, when you create a line that is extremely exclusive to one type of person, and when I say that, I mean plus size. So we know that women come in many shapes and sizes and plus size, because you have your plus size women that are taller, shorter, some are bustier, some are hippier. With a plus size one, you definitely want to make sure you try it on multiple different types of plus size women. That is a very, very great market to be in, because there's not a lot of people that do it and do it well, especially Black. There's not a lot of Black plus size designers, and I feel like more than anything, Black people are the ones that are the leading target consumer for a plus size line. So you want to make sure with that you are on point with your fits, with your choice of fabrics, with your choice of colors, and make sure that you're actually using your samples as a survey, like without doubt. Now, when it comes to the product development process and moving into production, you have to do, I'm not saying you have to, because everybody's different. I don't want to make it seem like I'm forcing you guys to do anything. You kind of got to follow a certain type of orders of operation, if that makes sense. So with pattern making, that is going to be the intellectual property of your company. And that is going to be like your bread and butter. The silhouettes that you create, the silhouettes that you trademark, the silhouettes that are exclusive to your brand, hold on to those. As a designer, you shouldn't really be creating new patterns every season. To be honest, you should be updating or changing the fabrication or using different trims or something like that to already made designs, because like I said, those are the intellectual properties of the company. So what you want to do is use the patterns as an investment, and because that's what they're gonna be. Your first run of a manufacturing production in the USA it can and can't be profitable, depending on how you sway it, because the first amount or a set amount of money that you put into your production is going to cost you. That grading, when I say grading, I mean taking that one sample pattern that you created and moving it into different sizes, deciding whether you want it to be a numerical run, whether it should be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And you should be using numerical numbers with things that are woven. When I say things that are woven, I mean things that do not have a lot of stretch to them. You should be using alphabetical sizing with your knit fabrics, things that have multiple stretch, because a small, medium, large makes sense. So keep that in mind when creating your sizing. Woven fabrics, stick to numerical. Knit and stretch fabrics, go ahead and stick to your alphabetical numbers, because they don't require a lot of sizing in between. So when it comes to grading, like I said, grading can be expensive, because you're also in the form of creating grading, you're also creating markers. Now with markers, a marker is basically all of your graded patterns, meaning all of your different sizes, mapped out into one piece of paper, all of the pattern pieces for every single size. And this piece of paper is created based off of the width of the fabric that you're using. It's a bug in here that's irritating the shit out of me. Sorry. Now, of the width of your fabric. So you don't actually have to purchase fabric until after your patterns are graded. And this is why you should do it this way. Once a pattern is graded and a marker is created, they actually, if you have a good grader, I work with an amazing one, and most of them do it. I don't see why they wouldn't. Most of the grading and the markers are created based off of how much can fit into the width of the roll. So anytime you go and you look at fabric and you're looking to purchase like a fabric, just get a swatch of it, find out how much it costs, find out what the width of the actual roll is, because when we actually get the marker created, it's gonna basically fit as many pattern pieces into a small space, so that way you're not wasting any fabric. And then once the marker integrator is done digitalizing everything and putting everything into computer form, they will actually tell you exactly exactly how much yardage goes into each size. So for your extra small, you need 1.5 yards. For your medium, you need 1.75 yards. So on the back of your pattern, there'll be a numeric, like a number system letting you know exactly how much yardage goes into each and every piece. Then decide how many units you want to make of each size, times that by the amount of fabric that goes into each piece, and that's how much fabric you buy. Once you buy your roll, you get that roll, your fabric, whether it's overseas or if it's a fabric store, if it's at a jobber, wherever you're getting it from, then you got that delivered directly to your manufacturer of choice. And I think that's one of the things with a lot of designers, that they go and they purchase the fabric first and then they try to work it into the roll, which doesn't make sense. There's no point, unless it's something that you're going to use season after season after season. You're going to know you're going to use the same fabric. Absolutely. Go and invest in it. Make it a part of your like core pieces, that's something that your collection will always offer. Absolutely. But if not, if it's something that is trendy or something that is a fad, do not waste your money, because you'll sit on it and then it'll just end up being a waste of money. Another thing that I just want to also press more than anything, people, and I get a lot of people who ask questions about this. So when it comes to pricing out, like how, I mentioned earlier about being like within the market that you need to be in, contemporary market, whatever. Like I said, all of those markets have a price point attached to it. Now, whatever your price point is, your retail price, 60 or 50% down should be your wholesale price. When it comes to cut and sew, and when it comes to negotiating those prices with these manufacturers and stuff like that, your cut and sew price should be 18% of the target wholesale price. So basically, once you chop that retail number in half and you come up with your wholesale, whether you're selling wholesale or not, it does not matter. This is just a regular math formula. So if you are selling wholesale, you know how much you charge for it if it was going into a boutique, or if you were doing consignment, or if you ever got an order with like a really, really big store, a big retailer. However, the reason why I'm telling you to do 18% of the wholesale price is because it gives you room for everything else. If you want to run a promotion, if you want to have a buy one, get something half off, if you want to run a sales, if you want to do anything like that. So if you just only do things based off of your retail price, it's going to leave you in it's gonna leave you in a fucked up place, in all honesty, because then you're not gonna profit when you're trying to get rid of merchandise. And at the end of the day, the whole point of getting into the fashion design business is not only to be creative, but also to make a profit from it. So that's why I'm telling you guys to use 18%. So just break it down a little bit further. Once you have that 18% target price, put in the amount of fabric that goes into each piece, times that by we're gonna do it because we just doing this by piece, so it's like a cost sheet. Put in how much the fabric costs, times how much, or an average number that it takes to put into each piece in order to create. List your trims, list your binding. Your grading should be 10% of your cost of goods, which is the cost price, and then your miscellaneous price should be like another 15%. So basically what happens is you see a breakdown of how much the cost is based off of the wholesale price, the cost of goods, the miscellaneous price, the trim, the fabric, everything, and you come up with one number of how much you have to spend on that cut and sew price. So i.e., let me just give you guys a good example. Okay, so I had a previous client that sold a pair of leggings. It was a techno fabric, not special. It was a good fabric. Zip, sucked you in, really good waistband. Those leggings go for $595, and this particular client sells out of this particular legging every season. Okay, so I think I got it. I only pay, I think, $50 to make these leggings, and she sells them for $595. She does not have a big online presence, so she's not selling a whole bunch of stuff online. She is not in any retail stores like where you can just go buy her off of the rack. She has a very great marketing strategy, which I love to stress to people. She tapped into the markets where people are not tapping into. She goes to places where there is not a lot of places to shop. She has a huge clientele in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She's a New York-based designer. Huge clientele in Oklahoma. Huge clientele in Colorado. huge clientele in Nashville and Kentucky and little suburban areas in Connecticut because of why those areas don't have a big shopping, like there's not a big place to shop. And how you do is tapping into these markets. You need to go into small boutiques in this area and ask to partner with them. You need to host trunk shows and pop-up shops and stuff like that in local hotels. And as people come in, they see you. So it's like your marketing strategy and how to get into these markets where people actually spend the money, they're there. Get it out of your head. Your family, your friends, and whoever your customer was beforehand is not your customer. Be able to differentiate the difference from people that were buying from you, because there's only two things your consumer can do. If you're selling graphic tees right now, or t-shirts, or shit that you're buying wholesale and that you're printing on, the customer that is buying those things and the customer that is buying ready to wear is not the same customer. They are two different people. So either you are never going to cater to that market again and your customer is elevating and growing with you, or you're creating a completely different brand that's actually going to target this consumer and then also still target your budget your budget level consumer, because that's what a person who buys t-shirts that are $20, $30, because people will buy an off-white t-shirt for over $100 or $200. Like I said, it's two different type of consumers, okay? So just make sure you know the difference between the two type of consumers. So either elevate and you no longer cater to that market, or create a diffusion brand, okay? Now, another thing I kind of want to tap into is, I think, quality control and like knowing the differences between construction. I do not expect everybody to know, not everybody, I don't expect every designer to know what type of finishes are good for certain type of fabrics, or what things should and should not be lined with, but you kind of want to do your research, because like, let's say i.e. silk. I personally would never do an overlock stitch on a silk fabric. Silks are light, they're airy. I would only do a French seam on a silk fabric. I might do a flat fail seam, probably not. But it goes to show, when you know the difference, like when you know fabrications and you know finishes, how much better your garment will turn out. A factory, depending on the relationship that you have with them, they might tell you like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, because they have a little bit more experience, of course, and they've sold many different type of fabrics. They'll tell you like, we shouldn't do this type of finish, we'll do this, and you could take their recommendation. But honestly, as a designer and someone who wants to grow a brand, these are things that you need to know. You do need to study finishes and other differences and know what fabrics work for what. If you only want to design, you don't want to be hands-on with this type of stuff, and that's perfectly fine, hire a production manager, hire a merchandise, someone who knows, hire someone who does construction and knows something about construction, because even if you're not the best at it, you can be the sales, marketing guru genius of the world, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're going to be that person, you need to have somebody in your camp and on your team that do know the shit, and they need to know the right things and the things that are actually going to drive the business, because when you're selling garments for a certain amount of money, you definitely have to be able to speak to cost per wear. And cost per wear meaning how much wear a customer is getting out of spending $500 on a pair of leggings. Like, are they going to have these leggings weather? Do they wash well? Is the fabrication well? So those are all of the things that you want to look at and be aware of when designing, when picking fabrics, and be aware of content as well. Like, I wouldn't sell a $500 or $600 garment for, if it was polyester, or like I wouldn't sell it if it was polyester. I'm sorry. It would have to have some type of blend, some type of spandex, something like that, and like in that field, in order for me to want to sell it for a certain price point. Because I know that polyester, once it gets in a washing machine, is terrible. Sometimes when it hits heat, it's terrible. So knowing and understanding fabrications on top of knowing and understanding finishes will take you stronger. And also knowing trims, in all honesty, G. Like, I don't know if y'all know, but YKK is the best invisible zipper you can buy. Any exposed zipper, Riri is. Riri will never break, it will never flip, it will never get stuck or anything, and that's the best zipper you can buy in that market. So knowing the difference between what trims are great for your type of clothes and what trims are not great for your type of clothes is what you definitely need to know. So I want to open the floor up for like questions and stuff like that. I know that someone hit me earlier in my DM and asked me what was the best way, what was my biggest piece of advice for someone starting out in the fashion industry. And I think I said making sure that you guys negotiate that pricing and just making sure that you check every single garment. Like, I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give. And also when it comes to negotiating, knowing your number, not waiting for the manufacturer to give you a number, because they're always going to ask you, what are you willing to pay to test you, to see if you know what you're talking about. And if you do that breakdown, like I told you, of doing the 18%, do your retail pricing, do 60% below that for your wholesale pricing, and take 18% of that and give them that number, but don't really give them that number. Go $10 or $20 cheaper than whatever number you come up with, so that way when they throw out their number, y'all meet in the middle. When you go into a manufacturer, you should have a chart with all your sizes on it. All your styles on it, the different colorways that it comes in, and your total amount of units. You don't actually have to give them a breakdown of how many you're doing of each size. Have your total amount of units and have the different colorways that it's in. Have your chart with your target market numbers on there, and then give them one that's blank. And as you guys work through these styles, write down their numbers and never go to one person. Always go to 1 to 2 to 3 people. That way you can put them up and compete against one another. So it's like, well, I can get it from such and such for this price, but I like you, I really love your quality, and I'd rather give you the business because this is going to be a repeat business on, and definitely, like, smooth them in a way, and make sure you put it out there that this is going to be like an ongoing business, and then you'll have a better relationship with some of these suppliers and these vendors and these factories and stuff, and it'll definitely help you be able to build up that relationship without doubt. Another thing that you're gonna want to do is, when it comes to working in New York City factories, you kind of want to learn how to speak a little China English, a little Mandarin. Like, you got to have, if it makes the most sense, you got to have a digital visual of everything you need done, because their English is not the best here. Some of them do have assistants that speak English and it works out best, but the communication is not that far off from some of the people that you deal with in China and other countries too, because you have a lot of women and men that are foreign and they don't have the best English here that work in factories. So when you go to a factory to drop off your silhouettes or your garment, you should have a cut ticket. And on that cut ticket, it should have the fabrication of that garment, so that they know what labels to attach to it. It should have the size breakdown of every single thing. And then it should also have a swatch of the fabric that you need to use. So that way, when the cutter comes in and the cutter goes to cut your pieces, the cutter and the sewer are two different people. There's a cutter, there's a sewer, there's a hand sewer, and there's somebody in there that's also doing quality control as well. So the cutter is going to look at the cut ticket and they're going to pull out that fabric roll and they're going to start cutting. One of the most important things you can do when it comes to putting a swatch on your cut ticket is making sure it's on the right side. If for any reason your swatch is on, like you have a fabric that has a shiny side or like a dull side, or anything like the right side of the fabric versus the wrong side of the fabric, the more important thing is to make sure that whatever is face up is the actual outside of the fabric, because that's exactly how they're going to cut it. I did have an issue one time where a swatch was not on the right way and it wasn't even the right fabric. Like, if you're a designer that uses different fabrics but use the same color, it's so many different blacks and whites and grays like that. Make sure that the right fabric is on the right cut ticket, because I had one time 50 pants cut in the wrong fabric, and it was definitely my fault because I did have someone else do it for me instead of checking it myself and seeing whether or not it was right or wrong. And what happens? You end up having to pay for all those garments because in the factory they don't know, they cut it all out, they did all the work. So it's like, yeah, I got these pants cut in the wrong fabric, but I still got to pay for them, because I made a mistake. So having that really, really, really close attention to detail is something that I really, really can't stress enough. I am running low on time, guys. So if anybody has any additional questions, I think I answered most of them. Hey, I have a question for the live tonight. How do you know about choosing your SKUs and how important it is for cataloging? Okay, so so for choosing SKUs and how important it is to catalog. Okay, so your SKUs and your style numbers are very similar. So do a breakdown and check your question box. Is this the same person? I'll have to check the question box. Okay, hold on, guys. I ain't done this all the time. Okay, let me answer this one, and then I'll check that question box. So, for the SKU thing, your first 2 digits of your brand should always be your first 2 numbers. The second 2 digits should be the season. The third 2 digits, you need to make you like a style catalog code where it's just like 01 means top, 02 means bottom, 03 means dress. So that way when you do a style number system, it always makes sense. The second 2 digits should be if it's the first pant from that collection, and then the last 2 digits should be the color code. So if I was doing something from this upcoming season, I would say SS20. The name of my brand is Collier Bateen. It would be CVSS, meaning spring summer 20, pant 01-03, meaning it is from my spring summer collection coming out in 20. The pants are always 01, and then I have another 01 because it's the first style, and then my color code is 02. So you have to create a style numbering system where all the numbers and the digits make sense. And as you build on your collection, you could always add different color codes. You can also always add different numbers, because like 01 for me is a pant, but then the next 01 or 02 could be straight leg. The 02 can be wide leg. 03 could be culotte. 04 can be Bermuda. So you have to create it across the board, and then every time you have a style number that you need to create, pull from those numbers and create your style number. When it comes to grading and pattern making and cut tickets and all that type of stuff, no one cares about the name of your garment. The only thing they care about is the actual numerical number to make sure that shit makes sense. Let me check this question box. Bring this closer. All right, so do you connect your merchant designers with manufacturers, or you have a team that manufacturers? Okay, so answering your question. Oh, I just got dark. Okay, so I have 2 different options. So the NYC Garment District. The NYC Garment District Tour, which is the first Friday of every month. If you buy your ticket early, it's $155. If you wait a little bit, it's $165. If you wait till the last minute, it's $175. In that Garment District Tour, I take you to pretty much everybody I work with. I take you to multiple different manufacturers. I take you to pattern makers, pattern graders, sample makers, fabric sourcing. I take you to everybody in order for you to get your business started. Pattern makers, all that. In that tour, you'll learn how to, and it comes with a production manual with the orders of operations, with templates showing you how to do your cut tickets, how you do your cost sheets, how to do factory allocation charts. So within that tour, you'll learn everything, but it's up to you to take all that information that I give you and go out there and hit the ground running yourself. Build your own relationship with people, figure out your own payment terms with people, and do all your manufacturing. Me as a consultant, I do all that work for you. So if you hire me, you don't have to do the ripping and running and the building of the relationships, because I already have them. I've been working with these people for years. Now, to have a production manager, you have to be able to have a budget for a production manager. So if you're an emerging designer and you don't have a lot of money or a lot of like a big budget, then yeah, you're going to have to hit the ground rolling and figure all these things out for yourself. I give so much information in these tours that you actually have all the tools that you need. You just got to do the work. Whereas people who work with me and I consult for, they're not interested. They only want to make the clothes. They want to hire a production manager, and they just want to work through me. So to answer your question, you have 2 options when it comes to that. I also do pattern making classes, pattern making classes, sewing classes, draping classes, and I do a production management workshop. So even outside of the tour, you can take a production management workshop and we'll work through more specifics so that you can do it on your own. But if you decide that it's too much work or you don't want to deal with it, you're not interested, you can absolutely hire me to be your production manager, and all you got to do is provide me with the idea and the sketch, and I take it from there. So it just really depends on what you have time for, what you have the budget for, and how you want to produce your brand. But I do offer both options on my spectrum. So I think that's all the time I have for today. If anybody has any additional questions, hurry up and like shoot them out to me. Or if there's anything specific you were looking for in this live podcast that I didn't touch on, feel free to just write it in there. I have about 10 minutes, if that, before I got to get out of here. But I tried to touch on everything. I talked about the markets, talked about quality control, product development, fabrication, sampling process, when you're reaching out, what you need to have your tech packs, have your measurements in order. I think I tried to touch on everything. If anybody has anything, great. Thank you. No problem. If you have anything else, like, feel free to ask me. I don't know what else. I don't think it was nothing that I didn't hit on. Okay. Oh, one thing I just make sure I tell you guys. You did very knowledgeable. Thank you. When it comes to getting a sample maker and someone making your samples for you, collect your patterns. Anytime you go pick up a sample that was made by a sample maker or a factory, I cannot stress enough to you guys to make sure that you're getting your patterns back. Those are the things that you spend the most money on, and those are the things that, like I said again, is the intellectual property of your company. I've had a designer come to me with all her samples, and she was ready for production. She had 9-10 samples, didn't have any patterns. The person who did her patterns ran off with her patterns. I had to recreate all of these patterns, and absolutely I can do that, but she had already paid for them. So more than anything, guys, get your patterns. And I'm not going to say do this because it kind of makes you seem like an amateur. However, I don't find that there's anything wrong with it. Make these people sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, like, without doubt, because at the end of the day, it's going to protect you as a designer. I sign NDAs for all of my clients. So if they're uncomfortable with signing one or anything like that, red flag. You may not want to work with them because there's no reason not to sign an NDA as a pattern maker, because it is somebody else's design, and at the end of the day, you're just, you're protecting yourself, and making sure that no one gets hold of what you have. So I don't care if they feel some type of way about it. If they're not willing to sign an NDA for you, I definitely would call that as a red flag, and I may personally want to not work with that person. If you ever feel rushed or anyone's trying to push you to, you got to do this and you got to do it this way, there is no rush to this shit. Take your absolute time. It's better for you to take your time and really understand the process and know what's happening. Doesn't have somebody rush you through, like saying, okay, are you ready for production? Are you ready to do this? Money hungry, ready to push you, not there for your best interest, okay? I cannot stress that enough. I think that's everything. You guys can always tune into the BlackNFashion podcast at any time. I do have a lot of my earlier episodes. I do break down brand foundation and pricing. I do have a product development episode. I have a lot of episodes when it comes to marketing and stuff like that. So for some of you guys that just got wind of the BlackNFashion podcast, this is episode 31. So if you just go far back, you'll get a lot of information when it comes to, if you're a custom wear designer, how to set up your contracts, how to make those contracts, different things in different scenarios in which you can possibly get in from being a custom wear designer, how to differentiate your ready to wear from your custom wear if you want to continue to do both. There's a lot of money in custom. I would never say not to do custom. The money is there, honey. Just make sure that you're doing custom on your terms. Never do it based off of anyone's measurements, because everyone measures differently. Make sure you make those measurements yourself. Make sure people do not rush you, and do not allow people to rush you, because custom apparel takes time. Do not ever, I repeat that, it is not worth your sanity. And make sure you're charging custom clothing $600, $700+. Do not make anything for these people less than $600, because pattern making, fabric sourcing, your time, and people are not paying for your time, even though it might take you an hour to make something. Not paying for your time. They're paying for your expertise. They're paying for you to be able to execute that shit in an hour if you need to. You went to school, you did the work, you did the groundwork. Charge for it and know your freaking worth. Okay, so on that note, I am signing out. Feel free to send messages to my inbox, my DM. I will always address and answer questions at any time. Same way you can send me messages on an LC Apparel Consulting page. If it's a lot, I am going to tell you to book a consultation, but at the end of the day, I try my best to acknowledge and try to push the Black fashion industry forward and the agenda forward. So on that note, guys, I'm signing out. Have a great day. This episode will come out on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, Google Play, either tomorrow or Thursday. Have a good night.